So you did a poll and wrote an article about it. What should the Browns do at number 2? And when we took a look at this, trade down was the winner with 48 plus percent. Draft Cam Ward if available was 26. Draft Travis Hunter if available 17. And draft Shedeur Sanders way off the pace, down at 8%, just under 8%. When I look at it, I don't love either of the quarterbacks, and I haven't studied them, and I don't study. I've watched them multiple times, and in watching multiple times, I'm like, man, there are, and they're good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but there are certain things that you look at, that are there. Cam Ward has some plays where you're going, man, what are you doing? And Sanders has some that's like, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. Oh, there are certain things that you look at, and it's like, that's not an elite level NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think when I look at this draft class, if I were just kind of putting Shedeur in my mind, you stack it up to last year's class just purely as prospects, not based on how they've panned out in the NFL, but as prospects, I would put Shedeur after Drake May. So after that top three, Shedeur is kind of in that area where I would maybe in a similar vein to Bo Nix. I think as far as a prospect is concerned, I did a YouTube short on this yesterday. I think he's getting undervalued because he didn't have a running game last season. Colorado had the worst rushing attack in college football by 12 yards behind the next worst, which was Kent State. And when you look at just,
Ugh.
he really had no talent around him. Outside of Travis Hunter, you could look on like NFL mock draft database. There's not a guy in the top 275 out from Colorado outside of Travis Hunter on his team. So basically, had to do all that out with the exception of Travis Hunter, largely on his own merit. So I get some trepidation with Shedeur Sanders. I understand it. The idea that maybe he holds the ball a little too long and certain things like that. But I wonder how much of that is just because, he just didn't necessarily have a lot of help around him, especially up front on the offensive line where he had been sacked a lot the last 2 seasons. But I think Sanders' processing ability stands out to me. If you read my article that I put up earlier today, where I go through my options, that's number one for me. There's a link I have there to a Charles Robinson story from earlier this month, and he basically reported that Tom Brady is a big Shedeur Sanders fan, and I think that's a pretty good endorsement. If you have Tom Brady's endorsement, that's a pretty good endorsement right there. So I was kind of surprised with the poll that is kind of how far it went. Maybe not necessarily trading down was number one. I kind of figured that'd be a popular possibility, but Shedeur being dead last in the poll by a good amount was kind of not my anticipation and not my prediction because if I looked at the two quarterbacks, I would take Shedeur over Ward. I feel like there's a lot of questions with Cam Ward's ability to play in structure. Like you said, the times when he could play a little too much hero ball. And I think whoever he goes to is going to have to tap into that Superman ability and tell him, hey, it's okay to hit singles. It's okay to bunt once in a while, throw the ball away. You don't have to make a play every single time. With Shedeur, I think there's less of that because I think he's more cerebral than people give him credit for. He's hyper accurate. He makes good decisions. He played under Pat Shurmur. We all remember Pat Shurmur, of course, from coaching the Browns and the Giants as head coach. Him being Shadeur's offensive coordinator in 2024, I think helped. I think it helped Shedeur take a step forward. Yeah, if you're going to compare these two guys to the top quarterbacks in last year's draft, of course they're not going to be up there, but I think to me, I'm not as sold just yet on 2026. I need to see more of those guys like Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, Nico Iamaleava. I need to see more of those guys before I'm ready to say this is a guy I really like. Shadeur's a guy I've liked since the end of last season, since the end of 2023, and he's only gotten better this year.
Yeah, the concern I have with Sanders, and we showed it earlier in the show with Mary Kay, Dion tweeting out in 2018, wouldn't let a young quarterback go to the Browns. He'd pull an Eli Manning. So that you've got to do the due diligence with that and figure that into it without question.